Sam will explain the effects of childhood exposure to porn, why kids are at such a high risk, and how problematic porn use develops at a very young age. Notice what happens when a young brain is given more than it can understand before it's ready, and how future judgment may be influenced as this brain seeks to adjust to what originally overwhelmed it.
Porn isn't just a sinful behavior problem, it's a brain problem. And in this session, we'll explore how pornography corrupts God's design for our brains. The good news is God designed our brains for renewal. As men and women enter deep discipleship and a healing journey with other believers, people find healing in mind, spirit, and body, including our brains. Romans 12:1-2 says, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, in view of the mercies of God, I urge you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may discern what is good, pleasing, and the perfect will of God." Now, this verse tells us there will be some physical sacrifice involved. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Even for people not facing addiction, they are called to a process of sanctification. And for people struggling with pornography, it didn't happen overnight. It took time and practice for them to become in their trapped frame. And God typically calls individuals to a renewal process that requires sacrifice over time. Sex is God's idea, of course, but pornography is not sex. It's a hijacking of what God created. God designed our bodies, minds, and spirits to experience intimacy, pleasure, love, and satisfaction. When God created man and woman, He didn't step back, size us up, and say, I think they're okay, except for that sexual part, that's kind of dirty. No, God created them male and female and said it was very good indeed, from Genesis 1:27-31. God designed our bodies, sexual attraction, emotional desire, and sexual activity itself as a miraculous way for a husband and wife to connect, express love and devotion, and give and receive pleasure. Genesis 2:24-25 says married couples would be united as one flesh and feel no shame. God established boundaries for our own good. He wanted us to be healthy in mind, body, and spirit. But so much was lost when Adam and Eve doubted God's truth and rebelled. Afterward, they were ashamed and hid. And since the great fall, mankind has been breaking God's boundaries and hiding and feeling shame ever since. In everything we do, there are consequences, including consequences to our brains. Some are beneficial, and others are detrimental. For instance, every scientific study about sexual satisfaction comes to the same conclusion. People in long-term monogamous relationships have the greatest sexual satisfaction. God designed us for satisfaction in marriage. The porn industry promises greater satisfaction in a never-ending parade, and people gobble up the lie. And despite the fact that studies repeatedly show less sexual satisfaction among regular porn users. So let's talk briefly about two aspects of neurology. First, I'll review basics about the interplay of porn and our neurochemistry. Second, we will review how repetitive use of pornography physically changes our brains to increase cravings for pornography. And these two aspects work together as part of addiction. Our sexual neurochemistry is beautiful in God's design. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. But pornography hijacks and corrupts this design. The first chemical to review is dopamine. When sexual cues are picked up, dopamine makes us feel good, motivates us to take action, and focuses our attention to the point of tunnel vision. In God's design, this is beautiful. We focus on our spouse and the rest of the world disappears. But for the porn user, they become narrowly focused on the sexual media and acting out. Meanwhile, dopamine loves novelty and craves something new. And in our relationship with our spouse, each encounter is different. The sound of a voice, the feelings of touch, meaningful connection, and so much more. For the porn user, novelty comes from an unending stream of pornography which is today often violent and debasing. Dopamine also helps with memory and is joined by norepinephrine, which is often associated with stress and fight or flight response. Norepinephrine also acts as a hormone for sexual arousal and sexual memory. This is troubling, especially when people see pornography as a child. Together, dopamine and norepinephrine burn that often traumatic first exposure experience into the brain. Though people forget tons of things about their childhood, ask any adult if they first saw pornography as a child, and they can likely tell you a complete story. In an instant, they fall back through time to innocence lost and recall where they were, what happened, what they saw, and the awakenings of unexpected feelings. For men, testosterone dramatically increases sexual arousal and desire. It is a hormone that is released in men throughout the day, but when sexual cues are picked up by the brain, the testes increase production. Pornography and the mental fantasizing that it enables crafts a brain that is constantly generating testosterone and heightens sexual desire. Because testosterone is slow to dissipate, men who habitually watch pornography cause their own chemical imbalance. This high testosterone level increases their sexual awareness far above normal. Sexual fantasies are sparked by everyday objects, and even modestly dressed people are seen as provocative. Now, oxytocin, that's our next neurochemical. Oxytocin is often referred to as a bonding hormone. And big releases of oxytocin occur when mothers and fathers hold their newborn babies. It is often called the cuddle hormone because oxytocin levels rise when a couple snuggles, holds hands, or expresses other forms of intimacy. Oxytocin is one of the reasons a kiss is so powerful. It also plays a big role in sexual bonding to one's mate and triggers the contractions during male climax. Dr. William Struthers explains in his book, Wired for Intimacy, that oxytocin can have a negative impact for the male pornography user. Instead of bonding to a real mate, the porn viewer's brain bonds to the pornography or to the situation, especially when the activity is reinforced through repetition. Of course, your skull is more than a chemical bathtub. All of these hormones and neurotransmitters are actually interacting with a physical brain and its neural connections. So let's explore how the brain forms its compulsiveness toward pornography and how it's particularly impactful when porn use begins at a young age. With time, experience, and practice, the desire for pornography can feel like a physical and emotional need. The lifelong ability of the brain to wire and rewire its neurocircuitry is referred to as brain plasticity or neuroplasticity. For instance, the brain can increase or decrease the strength and the number of synapses that communicate an emotion or a feeling. This brain neuroplasticity also operates under a dynamic of use it or lose it. Do an activity more often, and the brain will create neural pathways that make an activity easier to think about and complete. Repetition matters. You've probably done something for the first time and it was really difficult. But with practice, it became easier. That's neuroplasticity at work. Because sexual activity launches such an amazing fireworks-like show in our brains, it takes less repetition to build these porn pathways than it would be for us to ingrain cravings for other activities. Recognize the damage early, and deep neural pathways can be prevented. However, if the stream of pornography continues, a neural pathway will develop, and it will take significant work and determination to alter. Again, for people trapped by compulsive porn use, these neural pathways for pornography were typically ingrained in the formative years of adolescence. This is especially true in today's online culture. The brain doesn't have to stay stuck on porn. It can be renewed. By following a process to healing, people can focus on healthy habits that build neural pathways for fresh enjoyment and lively activities. They are also losing or degrading neural pathways that crave porn by not using or thinking about porn or entertaining sexual fantasies. Neurologists show to overcome bad habits and addictions, a person needs to build new and positive habits in his or her life, which will in turn create new and positive neural pathways. Over time, and after building new and positive habits and ignoring paths to porn, the cravings for porn and the constant cues for sexual thought will diminish, and willpower will return. With practice, patience, and perseverance, freedom from porn can be the new reality. While that sounds simple, dopamine-driven habits developed over years of repetition are extremely difficult to ignore in favor of new, healthy alternatives. Men and women who have used pornography since adolescence have massive numbers of pathways and cues that lead them back to pornography. Desire for porn feels more like a survival need, similar to food, water, and shelter. Avoiding acting out feels unhealthy, both physically and mentally. But these are neurological and mental lies. Of course, people can learn a new way of living. With practice, individuals become stronger. However, it is imperative for them to learn healthy coping skills to deal with stress, boredom, painful memories, sexual impulses, and even one's daily routine. The more a person practices healthy enjoyment, stronger coping skills, and spiritual disciplines, the greater their capacity to take every thought captive to obey Christ.